A 15-year-old black girl walked home through 28-degree February cold. In her hand, the last carton of milk her grandmother could drink. In her pocket, 2 pennies. Nothing more. At the bus stop, she saw him. A man, gray-faced, slumped beside a trash bin, lips blue, coat torn. He hadn't eaten in days, maybe weeks. Willa stopped walking. She didn't think about Grandma waiting at home. She didn't think about the empty fridge. She didn't think about the eviction notice taped to the door. She knelt down, opened the carton, and pressed it gently into his shaking hand.
Drink, mister, slow.
He looked up at her, his pale eyes filled with quiet tears. Willa walked away into the icy wind. She never knew that one small act of kindness was about to change her life forever. 30 minutes earlier, the cold had not yet found her bones. Willa Sutton crossed the railroad tracks on foot, her thin sneakers crunching through gravel and frost. The Memphis bus would have cost $2.70. She had $3.01. Math, she had learned, was sometimes the difference between dinner and nothing. She tucked her chin into the collar of a jacket 2 winters past its life. 3 miles to walk. Bellamy's corner market sat at the bottom of the hill. She would buy the milk. She would walk home. She would say nothing about the cold. The bell over Bellamy's door rang as she stepped inside. Heat rushed her face. Mrs. Bellamy, gray-haired and gentle, looked up from the register.
"Afternoon, sweetheart. How's your grandma?" "Holding on, ma'am."
Willa moved to the dairy cooler. Half-gallons were $3.49. The quart cartons were $2.79. She took the quart. Behind her, the doorbell rang again. 2 voices, one a girl her age, one a woman with a hand-stitched leather purse.
"Mom, look at her shoes."
"Hush, Tara, don't stare." But they stared. Willa set the carton on the counter. She unfolded the dollar bills she had folded 8 times that morning. She counted the coins twice. Tara Whitfield laughed under her breath. "Some people really shouldn't be allowed in stores like this." Willa did not turn around. She handed the money to Mrs. Bellamy. She took her change. 2 pennies. She had walked into Bellamy's with $7 in October, then 5, then 4. Today, 3. Tomorrow, she did not yet know what number. "You take care now, baby," Mrs. Bellamy said softly. Willa nodded once. She walked out into the cold. The walk home took her past 3 boarded houses. A foreclosure sign hung on the Andersons' porch. A stray dog crossed her path, ribs showing through its fur. She did not stop. She did not slow. She held the milk carton against her chest like something living. The house at 412 Maple Street leaned slightly to the left. The paint had given up years ago. A wreath of dried laurel hung crooked on the door, Grandma Etta's last hopeful gesture from Christmas. Inside, the air smelled of menthol and old wood. Grandma Etta sat in the wheelchair by the window, a thin quilt pulled to her chin. Her breath rattled when she spoke. A small plastic bottle of nitroglycerin pills sat on the side table. The label was dated for refill last Thursday. "That you, Willa girl?" "Yes, Grandma." "You walked again, didn't you?" "It wasn't far." "It was 3 miles." Willa knelt by the wheelchair and placed the carton on the side table. Grandma's hand, thin and warm, settled on her cheek. "You're cold, baby." "I'm fine." "You bought milk." "For your medicine. The doctor said calcium." Grandma Etta studied her granddaughter the way she had studied her son 30 years before. She seemed to be memorizing what kindness looked like on a young face.
Willa, listen to me. Ma'am, share what you got, even when it hurts, especially then. Promise me.
I promise.
The clock on the mantel ticked. Outside, the temperature dropped another 2 degrees. Willa stood, kissed her grandmother's forehead, and walked toward the kitchen with the carton in her hand. She placed it in the refrigerator. Then, after a moment, she took it back out. A thought had formed. She could not yet explain it. She tucked the carton into the inner pocket of her jacket. She added half a slice of yesterday's wheat bread, wrapped in wax paper. She told Grandma she was going to check the mail. She walked back into the wind. The Beale Street bus stop sat 3 blocks east. She had no reason to go there. She did not own a transit pass. But something inside her was already kneeling. When she arrived, the man was there. 28 degrees. February. The bus stop on Beale Street, half buried in dirty slush. A man slumped beside the trash bin, knees to chest, coat torn, lips blue. And Willa Sutton, 15 years old, did what she had promised. She knelt. She gave him the milk. She gave him the bread. She watched him cry quietly into the wax paper. She walked away. The man's eyes followed her down the block. They did not look like the eyes of a man with nothing. Morning came hard. A folded white envelope was taped to the front door. Willa pulled it free with stiff fingers and read the words 3 times before they made sense. Notice of eviction, 7 days. Property of Gregory Lawson, LLC. She stood on the porch with the paper in her hand. The frost on the railing crackled in the silence. She folded the notice into the shape of something small. She put it in her jacket pocket. Grandma did not need to see this. Not yet. She turned toward the door and froze. Inside, a sound she had heard before. A short, sharp gasp. Then a longer one. Then nothing.
Grandma?
Willa ran. Etta was slumped sideways in the wheelchair. One hand clutched her chest. Her lips had turned the color of dust. The quilt had fallen to the floor.
Grandma! Grandma, look at me!
Willa grabbed the bottle of nitroglycerin from the side table. She fumbled the cap. 2 pills tumbled to the floor. She slid one under her grandmother's tongue.
Breathe, Grandma. Slow.
She ran to the kitchen wall phone. She dialed 3 numbers she knew by heart.
This is Willa Sutton at 412 Maple. My grandmother. Her heart again.
The dispatcher's voice was calm. The ambulance would come. The wait would be 20 minutes. Maybe longer in this part of town. It was 18. Eleanor Hayes was the first one through the door. She wore the Navy windbreaker of the Volunteer Responder Corps. She knelt by the wheelchair without ceremony. Stable, pulse weak but there, pressure too low. She looked up at Willa. You're the granddaughter.
Yes, ma'am.
This your 2nd episode this month?
3rd.
Eleanor's jaw tightened. She wrote something on a small pad and tore the page free. Listen carefully. She needs valve surgery. Within 30 days, not later. You hear me, sweetheart? 30 days.
We don't have...
I know what you don't have. Take the paper, call the number, tell them Eleanor sent you. We'll see. Willa took the paper. Her hand was shaking. The ambulance left with Grandma at 7:50. School started at 8. Willa walked. The fluorescent hallway of Northside High buzzed against her ears. Mr. Donovan Pierce stood at the door of the main office. He smelled of cologne and old chalk. He looked at Willa's wet shoes. He looked at the clock. He gestured. "Inside. Now." She sat in the chair across from his desk. He did not sit. "Miss Sutton, your tardiness this term is unacceptable. Your attendance jeopardizes your scholarship. Do you understand what that means?"
My grandmother had a heart attack this morning.
"That is unfortunate. But Northside has standards. We expect students on scholarship to reflect the culture of this institution."
Yes, sir.
"Do you reflect that culture, Miss Sutton?" She did not answer. He waited. She did not answer. "Go to class." The cafeteria smelled of fried meat and bleach. Willa took her tray to a corner table. She had a single apple and a slice of bread from her own kitchen, wrapped in a napkin. Tara Whitfield approached with 3 friends. She held a small carton of chocolate milk.
Hi, Willa. Did you walk to school again?
Willa did not look up.
I asked you a question.
Yes. Tara smiled. Then she tipped the milk carton sideways. The cold splash hit Willa's left sneaker. The brown stain spread to her sock. The table erupted in laughter.
Some people really shouldn't be allowed in places like this, Tara said.
Willa stood up. She walked to the bathroom. She locked the stall. She put her forehead against the cold metal door. She did not let herself cry until the bell rang. By the time she got home, the eviction notice had crinkled in her pocket. She slipped it into the kitchen drawer beneath the dish towels. She opened the refrigerator. 1 egg, half a loaf of bread, a small carton of milk Eleanor Hayes had pressed into her hand at the curb. She stared at the milk a long time. In the front room, Grandma Etta's voice was thin but awake. "Willa girl, come here." Willa came. Etta opened her eyes slowly. She tracked her granddaughter across the room. "I heard your steps. They were heavy today."
It was a hard day, Grandma.
"We've been through worse, child."
Yes, ma'am.
"Tomorrow comes anyway." She kissed her granddaughter's hand. She closed her eyes. She slept. 2 weeks passed. Willa learned to keep her grandmother's pillbox stocked by selling the only thing she had to sell: time. She washed porches for $5. She walked dogs for $2. She scraped 20 out of one afternoon by clearing leaves from the gutters of the Carter house at the end of the block. She walked home with the bills folded inside her glove. It was 4 in the afternoon when she turned onto Maple Street. 6 black Cadillac Escalades sat parked along the curb in a perfect line. The neighborhood was watching. Curtains parted in every window. A boy on a bicycle stood frozen at the corner. Mrs. Coleman from across the street stepped onto her porch in her slippers and forgot to close her coat. Willa stopped at the broken mailbox. 4 men in dark overcoats stood on the sidewalk. They were not police. They were not paramedics. Their earpieces were too clean and their shoes too polished. The door of the second Escalade opened. He stepped out. He wore a charcoal Burberry overcoat. His shirt was pressed white. His face was shaved smooth. He looked nothing like the man at the bus stop. But the eyes were the same. Willa's breath caught. She took 1 step back. "Don't run," he said quietly. "Please." "Sir, My name is Walter Brooks. I've been looking for you for 14 days. She did not know what to say to that. He came down the walkway slowly so as not to frighten her. He stopped a respectful distance away. He removed his gloves and held them in one hand. "You gave me a carton of milk and half a slice of bread. At the Beale Street bus stop. On a Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
You walked away without telling me your name.
My grandma was waiting.
A muscle moved in his jaw. He looked at the porch. He looked at the wreath of dried laurel still crooked on the door. Miss Sutton, I would like you to come with me, just for an hour. There is something I have to say to you that I cannot say standing on a curb.
My grandma
is at St. Jude Memorial, as of 7 minutes ago. Private cardiac suite. A nurse named Eleanor Hayes is with her. Willa stared at him.
Why?
Because I owe a debt, and debts must be paid before they grow heavier. He gestured at the open door of the Escalade. Willa looked at her sneakers. The brown milk stain on the left one had never fully washed out. She got in. The lobby of the Peabody Hotel smelled of polished brass and old roses. The chandelier above her head was the size of her grandmother's bedroom. A man in a uniform pulled out a velvet chair for her. She did not sit until Walter Brooks nodded. A long table waited in a private boardroom on the 15th floor. 3 lawyers stood when they entered. One was a woman. She was tall. Her hair was pulled back tight. She wore a black suit cut from the kind of cloth that does not wrinkle.
Walter,
she said.
A word.
In a moment, Vivian. Vivian Hollister's gaze slid from Walter to Willa. Her mouth shaped a thin, polite smile. The smile did not reach her eyes.
Of course, she said. Take all the time you need.
She closed the door behind her with the softest possible click. Walter Brooks turned to Willa. Now, he said, let me tell you who I really am. Walter Brooks did not sit at the head of the long table. He pulled out the chair next to Willa's and sat at her elbow. 2 weeks ago, he said, I came to Memphis without security. I do that twice a year. I walk through the cities where my foundation runs programs. I look at what the money is actually doing. The board does not approve. I do it anyway.
You were homeless?
For 72 hours. My wallet was taken in an alley behind a check-cashing store. My car was stripped before I could find a phone. I had no identification. The shelters were full. I sat down at a bus stop because the bench had a roof. I had not eaten in 3 days. You weren't pretending. No. By the time you found me, I was thinking I would not survive the night. He looked at her, not at her shoes, not at her jacket, at her face. You did not ask me who I was. You did not ask me what I needed. You knelt down, you gave me what you had, and you walked away.
Grandma told me to.
Then I would like to thank Grandma. He slid a folder across the table. Willa did not touch it. This is what I am offering, Miss Sutton. Your grandmother's valve surgery, paid in full at St. Jude. A full medical team. Recovery housing if she needs it. The mortgage on 412 Maple Street, purchased outright and signed over to you and her. A full scholarship to Westbrook Academy starting next fall. Counseling, clothing, books, anything she or you require for the next 10 years.
Why?
I told you, I owe a debt.
No, sir. Why me? Why now?
He was quiet a long moment. Because you did not ask me anything. Do you know how rare that is in my life? I cannot remember the last time someone helped me without wanting something in return. You are 15 years old. You weigh less than 110 pounds. You walked 3 miles in the cold to buy a quart of milk for a sick woman. And then you gave the milk to a stranger. Because Grandma told you to. Willa's eyes filled. She would not let the tears fall.
My grandma needs the surgery. The doctor said 30 days.
She will have it in 3. He picked up the phone on the table without taking his eyes off her. He pressed 2 buttons. Marlene, get Dr. Lambert at St. Jude, now. Tell him Etta Sutton is being moved tonight. Cardiac wing, private suite. Surgical team of his choosing. Bill me directly. Tell him I will personally cover anything insurance refuses. And reassign the volunteer nurse Eleanor Hayes as primary. Yes. Tonight. He set the phone down. Done. The boardroom door opened. Vivian Hollister stepped in with 2 manila folders and a soft, careful expression that Willa would learn to recognize.
Walter, I don't mean to interrupt, but the board called. They have concerns. Just concerns. I told them you would want to hear them before any agreements are signed.
Vivian.
Of course. We can discuss it later. I only want to protect the foundation. And you.
Her smile rested briefly on Willa. The smile was warm at the corners and cold at the center. Willa felt it the way an animal feels a closing door. Vivian left. Walter did not look at the door. Don't worry about her. She is paid to worry. Worry today. Tomorrow, you will hold your grandmother's hand. By 6 o'clock, Etta Sutton had been moved by private ambulance from St. Jude General to the cardiac wing's private suite. The room had a window that faced the river. There was a real bed. There were warm blankets. Eleanor Hayes met Willa at the door.
Sweetheart, what happened? I don't know. Your grandmother's asleep. They've started the prep. Dr. Lambert came in himself.
Willa stepped into the room. Etta opened her eyes slowly. The IV was steady. The monitor beeped, soft and even. Willa girl, why is everything white?
They moved you, Grandma, to a better room.
How? Willa took her grandmother's hand and pressed her forehead against it.
A man I helped at the bus stop. He came back.
Etta closed her eyes. A tear slid down the side of her face. What did you do, baby?
Nothing, Grandma. I just shared a milk carton.
That is not nothing. Outside, the streetlights came on along the river. Sleep took Etta hours later, with Willa still beside the bed. The next morning, Walter sent 2 men in suits to the office of Gregory Lawson, LLC. They placed a cashier's check on the desk for the full amount of the back rent and the current month. They added 12 months prepaid. They added the purchase of the deed to 412 Maple Street. Gregory Lawson read the check. He read the second sheet of paper next to it. He turned the color of unbleached paper. This is unusual, he said. It is a final offer. Sign or do not sign. We have other ways. He signed. His hand shook as he capped the pen. By noon, 3 news vans were parked outside the small, leaning house on Maple Street. By 1 o'clock, there were 7. Walter Brooks stepped out of the front door, wearing the same Burberry coat. He held Willa's grandmother's wreath of dried laurel in his left hand. The reporters pushed forward with microphones. Mr. Brooks, is it true? Did a 15-year-old girl save your life? He paused for one beat. He looked into the cameras as if he were looking through them at a single person far away. 2 weeks ago, I had nothing. No name, no money, no warm hands. A girl no one in this city had ever heard of stopped walking, knelt down, and gave me what she had. She did not know who I was. She did not care. She was taught to share what she had, even when it hurt. The street went silent. A neighbor on a porch began quietly to cry. I have spent 40 years building a company on the belief that wealth is what we keep. I was wrong. Kindness given by the poor is the only kindness that costs. Everything else is left over. The cameras rolled. Inside the house, Willa stood in the front room. She watched the speech through the curtain. She did not understand all of it, but she understood the last sentence. Her grandmother's voice was in her head. Share what you got, especially when it hurts. The surgery took 6 hours. Dr. Lambert came out of the operating wing at 4:17 in the afternoon and said one word. Clean. Willa cried in a way she had not cried in 5 years. Quiet, bowed, steady. By the 3rd day after surgery, Etta could sit up. By the 5th, she asked for greens. By the 7th, she was reading aloud from a Bible the size of a brick. Willa moved into the Brooks Foundation guest residence on Union Avenue. The room had a bathtub with feet. The towels were folded into shapes she did not recognize. She slept on the floor the first night because she did not want to wrinkle the sheets. Walter visited every other evening. He never came empty-handed. The first time he brought 3 books. A worn copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God, a collection of Mary Oliver poems, a thin volume on personal finance. For the times when you are alone in this room, he said, and the room feels too big. On a Tuesday evening, he brought a small framed photograph. He set it on the table between them. A black woman in a starched white apron stood on a porch in the Mississippi heat. Her hands were folded. Her smile was soft. My mother, Walter said. After my father died, she worked as a housekeeper in Tupelo for 16 years. She raised me on what people threw away. She told me the same thing your grandmother tells you. Share what you got. You don't look like her. I look like my father. The rest of me is hers. Willa did not know what to say. She nodded once. When Walter left, she walked down to the hotel's breakfast room. A small carton of milk sat on a marble tray. She slid it into the pocket of the coat the foundation had given her. Someone, somewhere, might need it. She set it on the windowsill where the cold could keep it. That same evening, on the other side of town, Vivian Hollister entered Dino's Steakhouse. She sat across from a woman in a long camel coat at a corner booth. The woman's last name was Whitfield. They ordered nothing. They spoke for an hour. They left through the back. It started small. A morning headline in the Memphis Reporter. Who is Willa Sutton? A photo of her on the front step of the foundation residence, taken from across the street with a long lens. By noon, the story had grown teeth. A man named Russell Atwood walked into the lobby of the Memphis Reporter and asked for the reporter who had written the morning piece. He wore a clean barn jacket. He carried a yellow envelope. He sat down across from her and said he had information she would want. I saw the girl, Atwood said, 2 weeks ago, at the bus stop. I was sitting across the street having a coffee. She watched that man for 40 minutes before she walked over. She had a folded paper in her hand. She knew exactly who he was. The reporter wrote it down. You can quote me. I don't want any trouble, but this city needs to know. Russell Atwood had been paid $3,000 in cash the night before. He did not mention that. By 2 o'clock, the local television affiliates were leading with a new question. Did a teenager study Walter Brooks before staging a chance encounter? Anchor desks repeated the phrase, staged encounter, as if testing it for weight. By 3, Mr. Donovan Pierce stood in front of a microphone in the parking lot of Northside High. As principal of this institution, I cannot ignore what I am being asked. Willa Sutton has had a difficult record at this school. Tardiness, disrespect for authority. We have offered her every chance. I am not surprised that someone with her history would attempt something of this nature. I am only surprised at the scale. He blinked into the camera. He did not say the word liar. He did not have to. By 4, Gregory Lawson sat in front of a different camera in his cramped Lawson LLC office. She and her grandmother lived in one of my properties for 6 years. I never said anything publicly, but there were items missing: a toaster, a radio, a set of curtain rods. I let it go because I felt sorry for the old woman. Now I see what was really happening in that house. The chyron at the bottom of the screen scrolled in red. Teen girl cons billionaire. Was it really charity? The story did not pause. By dinner, it had crossed onto the cable feeds. By midnight, it would cross the country. In the foundation residence on Union Avenue, Willa sat on the edge of the bed with a glass of water in her hand. The television in the corner played the loop. Her face, her grandmother's house, Pierce, Lawson, the barn jacket man she had never seen before in her life. She did not cry. Not yet. She set the glass on the table. The water trembled in it. It had not stopped trembling since the second broadcast. At St. Jude Memorial, Etta Sutton lay propped up against 3 pillows. Eleanor Hayes had stepped out to take a phone call. The television above the bed was on the local news because Eleanor had left it on the local news. Etta saw the headline. Etta saw the photo of Willa. Etta saw Donovan Pierce's mouth move. The heart monitor beside her bed began to beep faster, then faster. Then it began to alarm. Eleanor came running. A nurse from the hallway came running. Dr. Lambert was paged. Across town, in the glass-walled boardroom on the 42nd floor of Brooks Tower, Walter Brooks sat at the head of a table of 12. 11 were directors. The 12th was Vivian Hollister. "Walter," said the director from Charlotte, "we are not saying she planned it. We are saying the optics are difficult. The girl has a record. The principal has gone on television. There is a witness. The story has legs. The foundation is at risk." "The girl does not have a record," Walter said. "That is not what the principal says. I do not work for the principal." Vivian leaned forward in her chair. "Walter, we have to consider distance. Until the facts are clear. Just until then." "There are no new facts. The facts have not changed." "The story has changed." "The story is not the facts." His phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up. "Walter Brooks." He listened. His face did not move. Then it moved very slightly. "I'm on my way." He stood up. 12 people stood with him. "Adjourn," he said. "I'll be at St. Jude." Vivian Hollister waited until the door closed. Then she allowed herself the smallest smile. In the foundation residence, Willa watched the news cycle, the words grandmother and heart rate critical. She did not understand. Then she understood. She left without a coat. The cab driver from the foundation lobby did not charge her. She arrived at St. Jude with red eyes and frost in her hair. Eleanor Hayes met her at the door of the cardiac wing. "She's stable. She's stable. Walter is with her." "Did she see it?" "She saw it." Willa walked into the room. Etta's eyes were closed. The lines on the monitor had settled, but were not where they had been an hour before. Walter stood at the window with his hands behind his back. He did not turn. Willa knelt beside the bed.
Grandma, Grandma, I'm sorry.
Etta's eyes opened slowly. Willa, girl.
It's all my fault. I should have.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't let them make you small, baby. You shared a cup. That's all that matters.
They said,
I don't care what they said. I care what you did. The monitor's lines settled a little. Her fingers, thin and dry, closed around Willa's wrist. Etta closed her eyes again. Willa pressed her grandmother's hand to her own forehead. She stayed an hour. She kissed her grandmother's hand. She walked out of the room. In the hallway, she did not stop at Walter. She did not stop at Eleanor. She walked past the nurse's station and down the stairs and out through the side door into the cold parking lot. She walked back to the Foundation residence. She packed her one bag. She left the framed photograph of Walter's mother on the table where he had set it down. She left the books. She left everything she had not carried in. She walked out the front door at 11:14 p.m. A black sedan was parked across the street. In the back seat, Vivian Hollister set down her phone. She watched the girl with the small bag walk into the dark. The smile, this time, reached her eyes. Walter Brooks returned to the Foundation residence at 12:40 in the morning. The photograph of his mother was still on the table where he had set it down. The books were still on the shelf. The bed had been made. The bag was gone. He stood in the center of the room for a long minute. Then, he made 3 phone calls. The first was to his private security director. She left on foot at 11:14. I want eyes on every street between St. Jude, Maple Street, and the river. Quiet. No vehicles she will recognize. No uniforms. The second was to Eleanor Hayes.
Walter, I was about to call you.
Tell me, 6 months ago, I worked a shift on the public cancer ward at St. Jude General. A patient came in with no family. He had not eaten in days. Willa Sutton came up to visit her grandmother that afternoon. She saw him. She took half her own sandwich out of her bag and gave it to him. I documented it because the man asked me her name. I have the chart note. Time-stamped. Signed. Send it to my email. Already sent. The third call was to a number Walter had not used in 8 years. Russo, it's Brooks. I need everything you can find by sunrise. Vivian Hollister, the principal Donovan Pierce, a landlord named Gregory Lawson, a witness named Russell Atwood, and the Whitfield family in East Memphis. Yes, every account, every contact. I am paying for sunrise. He hung up. He went to the window and waited. At 3:20 in the morning, Eleanor Hayes called again with the CCTV feed pulled from the Beale Street Transit camera. The clip ran 1 minute and 42 seconds. A girl in a knitted cap walked into frame. She stopped. She looked at the man by the trash bin. She knelt. She gave him the milk. She gave him the bread. She stood. She walked out of frame. No glance back. No phone in her hand. No paper. No script. Walter watched it 3 times. At 4:50, the investigator called. Vivian Hollister has been receiving wire transfers of $18,000 a month for 9 months. The originating account is held by a shell company that traces back to Carver Stone Equity. They have been trying to buy the Memphis side of your portfolio for 2 years. She has been feeding them inside positions. She is their inside person. Continue. Her former roommate at Vanderbilt is named Lillian Whitfield. They have shared a phone every Tuesday for the last 6 weeks. Lillian Whitfield's daughter, Tara, attends Northside High. The principal, Donovan Pierce, has been under quiet review by the school board for 2 years. The issue is biased treatment of scholarship students. He has a history. The board has been waiting for the right complaint. Lawson has been illegally inflating rent on 27 properties in low-income blocks. 3 families filed grievances last year. The grievances were buried. I have all of them. I have signatures. Atwood. Russell Atwood is a part-time actor. He took $3,000 in cash on a Tuesday night from a man matching Vivian Hollister's driver's description. He has a small criminal record. He will turn on whoever pays more. I'll pay more. Already done. Walter stood at the window of the Foundation residence. The river was beginning to show the first gray of morning. At 5:30, his security director called. "We have her, sir. She is walking. North on Riverside Drive. She has been walking for 6 hours." "Stop the car a block ahead of her. Wait outside. Do not approach. I'm coming." Walter Brooks pulled the black sedan to the curb on Riverside Drive at 6:11 in the morning. Willa Sutton was walking with her bag against her hip and her hands raw from the cold. She did not look at the car. He opened the door. "Willa." She kept walking. "Willa, please." She stopped. She did not turn. "I have everything," he said. "All of it. The chart note, the footage, the transfers, the phone calls, the signatures." "It doesn't matter." "It matters. They will say something else tomorrow. Not after today." He stepped out of the car. He came around the front. He stopped at a respectful distance. "Get in, please. Just 1 more hour." She turned. Her face was empty. "Why?" "Because I'm going to make this right. Out loud. Today. With every camera in this city in 1 room." She looked at the sedan. She looked at the river. She got in. The Peabody Hotel Grand Ballroom had not held a press conference of this size since 1968. 340 chairs, 18 cameras, 6 television networks. The live stream had 200,000 watching by the second minute. By the 10th, it would have 400,000. At 10 in the morning, Walter Brooks walked onto the small stage in the same Burberry coat. The board of Brooks Holdings sat in the front row. Vivian Hollister sat in the second row, in a different black suit. Donovan Pierce sat near the side aisle. Gregory Lawson sat in the back, near a security guard he did not yet know was a security guard. Walter stood at the podium. He did not introduce himself. "Last night," he said, "a 15-year-old girl walked out of a heated building at 11:14 in the evening because a city told her she had done something wrong. She did not do anything wrong. She gave a stranger a carton of milk. I was the stranger." He looked at the cameras. "I am going to play a piece of video. It is a city transit camera. It is time-stamped and unedited." The screen behind him filled with grainy gray light. A girl in a knitted cap walked into frame. She stopped. She knelt. She handed something to a slumped man by a trash bin. She stood. She walked out of frame. 1 minute and 42 seconds. No glance back. The ballroom was silent. "That is the entire encounter," Walter said. "There is no folded paper. There is no phone. There is no second person. There is no script." He turned to the side of the stage. "Eleanor Hayes." Eleanor stepped forward in her navy windbreaker. She held a single sheet of paper. "I'm a volunteer responder with the city of Memphis.
6 months ago, I documented an incident in the public cancer ward at St. Jude General. A girl named Willa Sutton gave half of her lunch to a stranger because he had not eaten. I time-stamped and signed the chart note that day. I have it here. I had it before any of you ever heard her name. She set the paper on the podium. She stepped back.
Walter spoke again. I would now like to address the people in this room who built the story that you have all been watching for 24 hours.
He turned to face the second row.
Vivian Hollister.
Vivian's expression did not change.
For 9 months, you have been receiving $18,000 a month from a shell company owned by Carver Stone Equity. They are the firm that has been trying to acquire the Memphis side of Brooks Holdings. You have been feeding them confidential positions. You are not my counsel. You are theirs. You are dismissed effective at this moment, and the federal regulators have been notified at 7 this morning. 2 men in dark suits moved into the second row. They did not touch her. They did not have to. Vivian Hollister stood. She walked the length of the aisle without speaking. The cameras followed her. She did not turn around. The double doors closed behind her with a quiet click that the microphone picked up. Walter turned to the side aisle. Donovan Pierce. Pierce's face had gone the color of old paper. The Northside School Board has been quietly reviewing your treatment of scholarship students for 2 years. You have been the subject of 7 complaints. They have been waiting for 1 more. They received one this morning. You are no longer the principal of Northside High. The board will announce the appointment of an acting principal at noon. The State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division will be in contact with you by tomorrow. Pierce did not move. Walter turned to the back of the room. Gregory Lawson. Lawson half rose. The man next to him, who was not in fact a hotel staff member, placed a hand on his shoulder. You have been illegally inflating rent on 27 properties in low-income census tracts in Memphis. 3 families filed grievances last year. They were buried. The Shelby County District Attorney's Office has had a sealed warrant since 6 this morning. The officers at the back of this room will accompany you out. Lawson opened his mouth. He closed it. He was led from the room. Walter waited for the doors to close again. Russell Atwood, he said, told a Memphis newspaper a story he had been paid $3,000 to tell. He has provided a sworn affidavit to the FBI as of 7 this morning. He has identified the woman who paid him. He has identified the courier who delivered the cash. The recording is in federal custody. A reporter in the third row stood and shouted a question. Walter raised one hand. The reporter sat down. I am not finished. He gestured to a side door. Willa Sutton walked into the ballroom. She wore a clean gray sweater the foundation had bought her. Her hands were not raw anymore. Her hair was brushed. She did not look at the cameras. She looked at Walter. He stepped aside from the podium. Willa stood at the microphone. She did not bring notes.
My name is Willa Sutton,
she said. Her voice was small at first. The microphone caught it anyway.
I am 15. My grandma raised me. She told me to share what I had. I shared a carton of milk with a man who looked cold. I did not know who he was. I did not care who he was. I just did what my grandma taught me to do. She paused. She found her voice. I did not share milk because I wanted anything. I shared because my grandma taught me kindness doesn't ask permission.
The ballroom did not move. Walter Brooks returned to the podium. He reached into the inside pocket of his Burberry coat. He held up a small, slightly crushed paper carton. This, he said, is the carton she gave me. I've kept it for 14 days. It is empty. It is also the most valuable object I own." He said it on the podium. Today, the Brooks Foundation is establishing a new program. It will be called the Etta Sutton Foundation, named for this young woman's grandmother. We are committing $50 million over 5 years to first-generation students from underserved communities in the South. We will buy back the predatory loans that families in this city have been crushed under and return them at 0 interest. We will fund medical care for grandparents raising grandchildren in poverty. Willa Sutton will sit on the advisory board when she turns 18. He looked into the cameras. This is what kindness given by the poor costs. Everything else is left over. The ballroom rose. 340 people. The applause did not stop for 90 seconds. In a small private room on the cardiac wing of St. Jude Memorial, Etta Sutton watched the screen above her bed. Eleanor Hayes was beside her. Etta did not say anything. She closed her eyes. A tear slid down the side of her face. She had been right. That is all that matters. 1 month later, the leaning house at 412 Maple Street stood straight on a new foundation. Walter Brooks had bought the deed outright. He had signed it over to Etta Sutton and Willa Sutton in joint name on a Friday afternoon. The repairs had taken 9 days. Etta sat on the front porch in a new chair the neighbors had carried over together. The wreath of dried laurel had been replaced with one of fresh winter holly. Her breath no longer rattled when she spoke. She still spoke quietly. Quiet was just her way. On a Monday morning in March, Willa walked into Westbrook Academy in a clean blue uniform. The principal welcomed her at the front gate. The other students did not stare for long. Inside her backpack, folded carefully at the bottom, was the old jacket she had worn for 3 winters. She had not been able to leave it behind. Eleanor Hayes had a new title on a new door. Director of Community Nursing, the Etta Sutton Foundation. She still wore the navy windbreaker on days she remembered. The block where Willa had grown up looked different in March. The boarded houses had plywood pulled down. The Andersons' foreclosure sign was gone. The Brooks Foundation had purchased 27 predatory loans from the receiver who had bought the wreckage of Gregory Lawson's holdings. The loans were being rewritten at 0 interest, the deeds returned to the families who lived in the houses. On a Tuesday afternoon, Willa walked the 3 blocks east from school to the Beale Street bus stop. The cold had broken. The slush was gone. The trash bin had a fresh liner. Walter Brooks was standing at the bench. He held 2 small cartons of milk, one in each hand. He did not look surprised to see her. "Care to split it?" Willa smiled for the first time in a long time. She took 1 carton. She did not drink. A young man sat against the wall of the bus shelter. His coat was thin. His eyes were tired. He had not eaten in some part of a day. He looked, just for a second, like a man Willa had seen once before. Willa knelt down. She opened the carton. She pressed it gently into his hand. "Drink, mister. Slow." He looked up at her. His eyes filled with quiet tears. She stood, turned, and walked toward the bench where Walter waited. Walter did not say anything. He did not move. He had learned by now that the lesson did not need a teacher. Some people give from abundance. Willa gave from her last drop. That is the kindness the world forgets to count. 3 years passed. Willa Sutton turned 18 on a Saturday in November. The following autumn, she walked into a New Haven dormitory with a single suitcase. She studies public policy at Yale on a full scholarship. She comes home to Memphis every break. Etta Sutton still lives at 412 Maple Street. The wreath on the door is changed with every season. Her breath is steady. Her mornings are slow. She reads aloud from the same Bible. Walter Brooks stepped down from Brooks Holdings at the end of last year. He runs the Etta Sutton Foundation from a small office on Union Avenue. He keeps a small, slightly crushed paper carton on his desk under a glass dome. The bus stop on Beale Street looks the same. A small bronze plaque sits beside the bench. It reads, in 4 words, "She shared what she had." On a Wednesday last winter, Willa stood in a soup kitchen on the south side of the city. She handed a milk carton to a boy of about 10. He did not ask why. She did not need him to. The story does not end. It only changes hands. If this story moved you, hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe for more. And in the comments, tell us, what would you have done in Willa's place? Hashtag Justice for Willa. Hashtag Share What You Got. Hashtag Kindness Reversal.